items to be added to the agenda by the board members or staff under matters for board discussion. Would you have anything on this?
I will. I want to, on the, as far as just adding at the end, I'd like to have a discussion with the board on establishing a process on appeals. We've really left it up to the chairman, and I'd kind of like to have that into our bylaws so that when someone makes an appeal, they know what the process is, and so it's not kind of left up to what the chair decides that day. So I'd like to have that talk just at the end of this.
Okay. Anyone else on the board? Okay. Declaration of intent by members of the public to address the board during our open session. 5 minutes near the end of the meeting. Amber?
Yes.
Okay, will you be 5 at the end? Okay. With that, I just write your name down so I don't forget it. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
By Brenda, seconded by Charles. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, action to recess as a planning commission can be convened only as the Board of Adjustment. We need a motion.
So moved.
By Rodney.
Second.
By Mel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Here we are. So at this time, get on the right side of the paper so we're in county instead of city. Would you put up this portion, please?
Certainly, and Mr. Chair, I probably should have noted that I'll have to step down during this appeal, and Mr.
Okay.
Peterson will be sitting in my place here.
Okay, as long as you can run that, or we may ask you to step back up. and
Sure,
change
I can run the left and right arrow if I have to.
Okay. Do you want to put that special note from the chairman up there?
That's what's on the left side of that screen. I just put them into bullet points there.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to read this portion. Special note from the chairman, because when I was notified that there was, and this will be for you, Amber, when I was notified you made one application, but as I read through it, I could see 3 different items. To give you just 20 minutes and then the board take one vote on 3 different items didn't seem right to me. So we went ahead and we broke it into 3 different items with 10 minutes each. And then the other side will have 10 minutes, and then 3 minutes for any back and forth on after that. I think that's a lot more fair to you. That way we will have a motion and a vote on each item if that's necessary. So, at that, Amber, would you step up to the microphone? Yeah. Push this button. Becky is going to run a timer. We'll set it at 10 minutes.
Can I pass these off quickly before my time starts?
Yes.
That'd be great, thank
You
you.
should start the. So board members, you have in front of you action item number 1. Appeal of decision of the zoning officer that changing the megawatt of some towers does not affect the status of the Codington County use permit issued to Crown Ridge Wind LLC and Crown Ridge Wind LLC 2, or the ability to obtain a building permit. The yes vote. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of papers there. I'll wait to the side for that.
To Mr. Peterson.
Okay. The yes vote would overturn the decision of the zoning officer. I can hear really well.
I forgot you have your hearing aids in. Sorry.
A yes vote overturns the decision of the zoning officer. The board determines action necessary to comply with the zoning ordinance and a conditional use permit. A no vote would affirm the decision of the zoning officer. No further documentation or permits are necessary for the tower referenced. So I will ask for a motion, basically just to take up this first item. By Brenda, do we have a second?
Second it.
By Rodney. Okay, Amber, would you go ahead and explain your appeal?
Okay, my first issue is the turbine size, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I filed a complaint, and I read that complaint in our October meeting. Luke did his research. I filed the complaint because they changed sizes of turbines and the generation of the turbines. If you look at the first document that I gave you, I tried to make it simple for you if you want to look at our county application. Crown Ridge Wind said they were going to build 13 turbines that are 1.7 megawatt and 80 meters in hub heights, and that's the list of the turbine numbers that they put in their application. The second column is what they applied for after they got their approval and went to the PUC. So they applied for 80-meter hub height for some of the same turbines, some different turbines, and they changed all of the generation to 2.3 megawatts instead of 1.7. The third column is what they actually constructed. And I have this map came from their builder, Blattner Energy. And you can look at that afterwards if you want to. Luke did the investigation, so maybe he already gave you that. This is their actual construction map. And if you look at your second page that I gave you, this is a map. This is the Blattner map is where I got this map. The second page is just the legend. The first page is what you should be interested in. The red circles show what they actually built as 80-meter hub height. The blue squares are what they told you and the public they were going to build as 80-meter hub heights. They also changed all of these turbines to 2.3 generation. There are no 1.7s anymore. So that's the map. That shows you the discrepancy from the county application, the conditional use permit. These two next things that I gave you just support what I made the table out of and what they applied for at the county and at the PUC. So those are just for your reference to show you where I got this information. Okay, the next document that I gave you is a request for a waiver that Crown Ridge filed with the PUC this past Friday. On page 1, the last sentence I highlighted for you, Crown Ridge confirmed it would use low noise trailing edge blades on all wind turbines. That is also a change from the County Cup, which the board has not had privy to. Page 2 of that same document, the first sentence, it says, Crown Ridge Wind has installed low noise trailing edge on only 8 of the 87 wind turbines. So they're not even following what they told the PUC they would be doing, let alone what they told the county they would be doing. More problems. So to get back to the zoning officer's response to my complaint, he says, no condition was placed on the cup for power generation. My response to that is, but the findings of fact, number 6, which he quotes, the application and testimony at this meeting, referring to July 16, 2018, allowed the board to adequately review how the applicant will satisfy the requirements of our ordinance, specifically citing flicker appearance and noise. Noise was discussed a lot at the hearing. Power generation makes a difference in noise, and the board and public have not had the opportunity to review such a substantial material change in 13 of the 87 turbines. 1.7 megawatt generators versus 2.3 megawatt generators and height. All of those things were changed. The purpose of a conditional use permit is for the applicant to present the application to the board for review and analysis. If I present to the board an application for a cup that I want to build an 8x10 shed with 10-foot sidewalls and then construct a 20x30 shed with 18-foot sidewalls, am I in violation of your county cup? There is a public hearing on each cup. Why is that? The public has the right to know what's happening in their respective area. The public and the board should be able to count on the application and testimony to be true and correct. The public should be able to count on what the board permits will be what is constructed. Tell me how the zoning officer, who studied the application, created the staff report for the CUP, wrote the findings of fact, then issued building permits that are not consistent with what was applied for and permitted at the CUP, in the CUP. He either clearly, 1, overstepped his authority here, or 2, he did not do his due diligence when issuing the building permits and created these grievous errors. The building permits do not match what was approved by the board. According to Ordinance 52203, item 13, flicker analysis is required. A flicker analysis shall include the duration and location of flicker potential for all schools, churches, businesses, and occupied dwellings within 1 mile radius of each turbine within a project. The applicant shall provide a site map identifying the locations of shadow flicker that may be caused by the project and the expected durations of the flicker. Height changes substantially affect flicker duration. These height changes are over 10% on 13 turbines. Another problem is noise changes at height. Finding fact 7, the applicant satisfactorily demonstrated the ability to meet required setbacks for turbines. Are you aware if any setbacks would have been changed considering height changes or sound changes from generators? Shouldn't you be aware of material changes that could cause setback issues? Shouldn't the board and the public be allowed to review them and approve or deny them? I ask the board to stop all construction and related activities, whether by injunction, stop order, or revocation, and review these material changes to protect the welfare of the residents, which is the whole purpose of zoning in the first place. You will be setting a precedent here if anyone needs to follow their future CUP conditions. That's my presentation, and I thank you.
Okay.
I stand by for rebuttal and questions.
Okay.
Can I just move these to the side? Or am I doing the next one right away? Are we going to vote? Are they going to
We'll go ahead
rebut?
and let the wind company, if they have a response.
Can I just slide that over?
Yeah.
Good with that?
That'll work. I know it's hard to shuffle up here.
It is, sorry. Kind of awkward.
Okay, at this time, we would give the wind company or the representatives equal amount of time, 10 minutes.
Good morning, I'm Miles Schumacher. I'm South Dakota Local Counsel for Crown Ridge Wind LLC, the holder of the building permits and CUP under question here today. I want to start with just some general comments about the ordinances and the purpose of a stop order here. The zoning officer is granted discretion in whether or not to issue a stop order under these circumstances. When we look at the applicable ordinances, with regard to stop order, the language of the ordinance says that the zoning officer may order work stop by notice in writing. There are other places in the ordinance where it says the zoning officer shall, where it's a mandatory action, such as issuing a building permit when the zoning officer finds that the application is compliant with the county ordinances. In 4.01.03, it says the zoning officer shall issue a building use permit. That distinction is very important. The zoning officer is granted discretion in whether or not to issue a stop order. And the reason for that is that stop order is part of the conditional use permit, building permit, part of the ordinance where the objective is compliance. And the purpose of the zoning officer's actions here is to achieve compliance with the ordinances. With regard specifically to the building permits here and the turbine height, the applicant was authorized to use 3 different turbine technologies, a 1.7, a 2.1, and a 2.3 megawatt turbine. In front of the, at the time that this was presented to the county for the CUP, the plan was to use a few of the 1.7 megawatt turbines. When this was permitted in front of the PUC, it was permitted fully as 2.3 megawatt turbines, and the PUC specifically found that that turbine technology and the sound modeling and shadow flicker modeling presented to the PUC was fully compliant with the county ordinances. So that determination has been made. At the time that the applicant determined that they would be utilizing the 2.3 megawatt turbines, the county was informed. This was not done without first informing the zoning director that they were going to employ the 2.3 megawatt turbines. There's nothing in the, and the building permits are specifically for the 2.3 megawatt turbines. There's nothing in the CUP that states that a specific turbine model has to be utilized. What has to be done is that the project has to be fully compliant with the county ordinances, and that finding has already been made by the PUC. The modeling was done with 2.3 megawatt turbines, and they have been found and determined to be fully compliant with the county ordinances, both for sound and for shadow flicker. So under the circumstances, the project is compliant with the CUP and the building permits. There's nothing to be achieved by issuing a stop order at this point in time. It serves no purpose. So we would urge that the appeal be denied on the issue of the specific turbine technology being used on the project. Thank you.
Okay. Amber, you would be given up to 3 minutes. If I can get to 3 minutes. Okay.
Miles said the planning and zoning officer has discretion. I don't think he has discretion to alter to not follow the flicker, which is specifically put into the ordinance that it has to be a study a mile around each turbine. Once they change those heights by 10%, we have nothing to show anybody who lives in the area whether they are compliant with the CUP or not. The planning and zoning officer, in your findings of fact, was given the authority to issue building permits, but there's nothing in your findings of fact saying that he can make any discretion about size or generation. And it doesn't matter what was permitted at the PUC. They changed what the county permitted at the PUC. It's not compliant with the county CUP. And I guess those are my main points. It's not following the ordinance. The zoning officer doesn't have the discretion to change your findings of your CUP, of what they presented to the public and to the board. So, also, they dropped a third of the project. That also changes the noise. And we know that changes the noise because their expert testified at the PUC when they dropped, I think they dropped 16 turbines, dropped or moved 16 turbines. And the sound went up at Al Robish's property. And Commissioner Nelson said, Al Robish has to live, or why would Al Robish's noise go up at, from dropping turbines? And their expert said, well, those are because of Dakota range. And Commissioner Nelson said, well, he lives 20 or 25 miles from Dakota range. And they said, well, that's the only thing that we can find. So dropping turbines makes a big difference. Noise generation. and going from 1.7s to 2.3s. We have absolutely no study, no basis on any of that at the county. The public should be able to rely on what they submitted. That's all I have to say about that, so thank you.
Do you wish to follow up? Okay, so refuse or deny. The gentleman sitting to my left is legal counsel for the county. Do you have anything at this time to add to the discussion?
The only comment I would make is that because this is a determination of the zoning officer that's being appealed under South Dakota statute, a 2/3 supermajority is required to overturn the decision of the zoning officer. Just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, so that would be 5 over 7. All 7 members present.
Does anybody want to look at this? No?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Zach, would you put up the zoning officer decision letter? It's 213. Okay, would you go to basically the last page, that would feel long, referencing this. Since we are appealing your decision,
Can you make that any more?
I'm going to as soon as I find it.
that was,
A little less perfect this way.
yes, it is.
Probably the best I can do.
Okay, I'll just take a minute, let the board members read through that, rather than having me read it. This is the decision of the zoning officer that is being appealed.
Let's see that.
Okay, but most of you have read through it. So at this time, I will ask the board, any comments, questions for either party involved? Related to this? Comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mark?
I'd like to ask Colonel Ridge a question, please. On the construction of the towers, Amber says you have changed the height of the towers. Is that true?
I wish Tyler were in the room. Terry, maybe you can answer it. But my understanding was that on those few towers, there's a difference of a few feet for the ones that are
Yeah.
2.3 instead of 1.7.
Okay.
That they will be slightly taller.
Slightly, does Tyler know the,
I believe he does.
He just went to the restroom.
okay.
You should.
Well, we'll give him the minutes so we get the accurate information.
It's 80 meters versus 90 meters, and it's listed on their building map then.
Mark asked them, so I'm gonna let them
Okay.
answer. So if you want to have a seat, we'll bring Tyler up.
Oh, sure.
Okay, question.
Sure. Just give us your name so the recorders can pick it up. Okay, Mark, you want to, after Tyler?
Tyler, Amber had said that, well, I guess I'm just going by the documentation that Amber supplied. She said you increased the height, but nowhere on this paper does it say